the shop is The Girl Can't Help It, and we sell 1930s, 40s, and 50s Hollywood glamour. So it's all based on that particular look. So most of it's from America. Mansfield, obviously, is my style icon. That's why the shop is called The Girl Can't Help It. And that was her most famous film. All my friends always used, because I collected everything, always used to say, the girl can't help it. I think vintage has always been popular. I think because the world is a smaller place, people hear about things quicker now, and because actresses and actors buy vintage and designers buy vintage and fashion magazines now feature vintage, so everyone has sort of clicked on to it. So I don't think it will ever go away. But having said that, what the fashion people write about as vintage is not what I consider vintage. I think people who are really into vintage should learn, learn about their own style and, learn about the pieces that they're buying. It should be representative of a certain era, and in that way, it should be of a certain quality or style or image that is representative of that era. So it can't just be any old secondhand clothes. There has to be something particularly special about it. It's a black straw hat. It was made exclusively for Lord and Taylor on Fifth Avenue, and it was made for one of the Tetley teabag family. And it's Edwardian with a stuffed taxidermied bird of paradise in San Francisco in 1967. And I bought 2 vintage dresses, and they were the first 2 things I'd ever bought. And I didn't, that was just secondhand clothes then. So I bought this beautiful Gauguin print Hawaiian dress, but I just bought it because it looked like a voodoo print. And I've had it since then. But even at my skinniest, it was tight. But I, still wore it all the time. I just refused to sell it because I just loved it and loved the print. But I didn't know when I bought it that it was one of the most collectible Hawaiian prints. Quality, quality, quality. You can't get the same quality now as you could then, and you'd be spending almost the same price for a much inferior piece. And if you buy a good piece of vintage, it's never going to go down in value.
Bangles today are moulded, but these were cast into long rods, cut across, and then the workers had to shape, make the cut and make the shapes. And that is a picture from the book of a family at work making things. And this actually, in some ways, resembles a jet workshop from the Victorian times when they would be making the patterns on the jet. Because they never were quite the same. Even the flowers on the same bangle might not be cut quite the same. If you feel a Bakelite bangle, it has this amazing feel to it, which modern bangles just do not have. Because they have been polished by hand. That one's been carved, but these have been polished to a high degree. Once you get hooked on that, you see, you like to wear those because they feel good, and you know somebody's taken a lot of trouble to produce that polish. That's what I get excited about. I used to go to jumble sales, and at that time, just after the war, when people were into new things, at the time of Festival of Britain, you could actually go to jumble sales and actually buy quite interesting things, and that's how I developed a love for things vintage, because the most amazing things were sent to East London, particularly to the Jewish synagogues. I like, in my possession, the things from that era, the original pieces, if I can find them. Yes, we are influenced, even in fashion, by something that's from the past. But if I can find the original pieces of that time, I'm much more interested. The modernist pieces that came after the war, they're interesting to me. The 70s, the 80s, big over-the-top gilt pieces are interesting. Everything's interesting, but if I can find the original pieces from the time, I'm happy. It's the precursor to a handbag. This is what you would have worn if you were going out to an event in the 20s, late 20s. But this is all you would have needed to go into the event. And it is just so beautiful. It's made of celluloid and has its original tassels. So you would have had one of the long flapper dresses, and this would have been on your arm. See if you like the history of fashion, and if you like to wear something individual and not worry what everybody else is wearing. You've got to be quite an individual, I think, to come in here and want to buy something that you really like that maybe not everybody else is wearing.
And what is it that makes my head go round and round, while my heart just stands still so much? If I didn't care.
Hello, my name's Leslie and I'm the proprietor at Tintin Collectibles. It's an area when lots of things happened for women. Women were getting the vote, women were going out to work. It was just after the Great War and there was huge opportunities that never existed before, and that translated into fashion and what they wore. Suddenly women weren't constrained by husbands, houses, corsets. They could actually really be quite free and imaginative, and you do see that in the design of their clothing. This is a burnous by Liberty & Co, and this was made in about 1910. And what they basically did was they saw a North African tribesman's robe, which was called a burnous, and it would have been made in a very coarse wool, and it would keep you warm in the sort of cold desert nights. And they thought, hey, this would look better in silk Duchess satin with hand-embroidered lace trim. A couple of designers that I think stand out, and that would be people like Paul Poiret or Madame Vionnet, who started the craze for bias cutting. Pioneered the insertions of diamond-shaped, diagonal cut pieces of fabric, which made dresses flare out and float in the 1930s there. It's very wasteful, so fashion designers would tend to avoid doing it now, because half you use and half you throw away. You can go into a vintage shop and you can buy yourself an outfit for not a huge amount of money, which is original, a one-off, and you're breaking away from the trend, you know. I love to see somebody buy something because they love it and they are going to wear it and make it their individual look. And it's almost like a thank you to you when they like your taste. So it's almost like passing on your good vibes and taste. Is that a bit hubristic?
Come on, sausage, look at the camera.
I'm Susan Nelson of Vintage Modes. We stock a wide range of vintage clothing and accessories from the beginning of the last century up to, say, the early 2000s. There are handbags, cigarette cases, suitcases, hats and clothes, from fur wraps to skinny summer dresses. I started doing this 2.5 years ago. Prior to this I used to be in the investigation industry. Our clients are various, from stylists to designers for retailers, from Galliano to New Look and everything in between, creative types, advertising campaigns. Also there's an increasing interest because of a certain green factor, because you're recycling. And also I think vintage has gone to a wider audience, as you can see from the top shop. What we buy does reflect us individually, yes. Because I think you have to like them in order to sell them. And I think we do genuinely feel sad when something sells, which is a bit pathetic, but there you go. Oh, sort of Jackie O, Audrey Hepburn, more on the sort of classical side. I think in the past, because obviously, leisure gear, trainers and sort of tracksuits weren't, they just didn't wear that. There was more of a sense of style and elegance. And it's a silk velvet, which you don't get very much these days. The shape of it, the detail on the sleeves. I'm sorry, my spec, Roy. People want to be more individual. The quality of the fabrics, the print, they just can't buy these days unless they're very, very rich. And also I think people want to be part of history. We are sort of probably a well-kept secret, certainly.
I make a lot of my own clothes, a dress a day I suppose, because I went out to music gigs almost every night and I needed a new dress all the time. Colour order, you see, so I should start again. And I used to name them after the biggest bands I went to see, you see. So the one I kept is a copy of a Bill Gibb, which I made from looking at it in Liberty's window. I couldn't afford it, but I used all the same material and things, and it's called my Grateful Dead dress. So, well, I'm Gwyneth, and this shop is Persiflage, and we specialise in vintage clothes, buttons, beads, sequins, things for making things, and I buy basically the things I like. And so people say, oh, do you like that? And I say, well, of course, if I bought it, I'm bound to like it. See, I remainder my stuff from here when I get bored with it. I believe very much that you should wear them, unless they're absolutely incredibly beautiful. You should actually wear them and not just keep them to look at. And so everything I sell has to be in wearable condition. And so they're all tested to make sure they're not going to fall apart. I've been doing this since 1968, and so everybody knows me. But I spend a lot of time out buying. I start half 3 on Saturdays and 5:30 on Sundays. First of all, it's very ecologically sound because you're reusing. So, secondly, they're much better cut, much better made, and they're unique. I mean, very rarely do you see two of a vintage dress, so you're fairly sure that you're going to be the only person wearing that one. I mean, I used to do this in the 60s. We'd have Victorian parties, and because of all the boning and the tightness of the fit, the restrictions, the petticoats, you find you are acting in a totally different way. But you can't keep it up forever if you're a modern person. I mean, it is so unusual to get them in perfect condition. And an ordinary person can fit into it. So sometimes it goes with a dance craze that's in fashion at the moment, and people want to dress the part, or they dress to a certain era, and the rest, I mean, you just feel much better. You feel more feminine, you feel sexier in a vintage dress. It just does something to you.